Connor is the brand new hero in the game. He's a brand new assassin. He's half Native American, half European. We wanted to build that base conflict into his background.
Why are you here?
When he begins his journey, he has a very clear sense of what is right and what is wrong. He is forever motivated by a desire to do the right thing.
Commander, Connor.
He's fighting for freedom and he's fighting against tyranny.
You as Connor, as the assassin, are
the critical part of the American Revolution.
The way that we wanted to deal with the historical figures was for you to meet them sort of over the course of your journey in a way in which the history books wouldn't normally portray them.
General Putnam.
Many of the founders were very tough individuals. Many of them were the equivalent of the modern badass.
Our founding fathers were very hard, disciplined, dedicated individuals who wanted freedom, who wanted liberty, who wanted to express themselves their own way and not be controlled.
These founding fathers were comfortable with war, and they were warriors.
Do not fire until you see the whites of their eyes.
Connor doesn't know much of the European ways at first, and then he gets to learn about these guys, these heroic figures. So for Washington, for instance, he sees that very strong guy, and Connor believes in him.
George Washington was not the old, feeble man on the $1 bill. During the time of the Revolution, George Washington would have been in his 40s. This was where the legend was being made.
You see Washington as he was during the Revolution, which is a younger man, an athletic man.
George Washington really was the first action hero.
George Washington, he's probably the next most important character that we had to work on. We must have done so many versions of him and just constantly making him look larger and larger than life.
We really tried to look at areas, that were really noticeable. The profile of Washington, very noticeable. He's also one that kind of ages as the game gets older. There'll be a discernible difference between the earlier version of George Washington and then as he ages and starts to become more the Washington that people really identify with.
He looks like the George Washington I visualize.
Basically, you get to talk with George Washington, to interact with George Washington. You have missions with George Washington.
Connor is moving in and out of both the Revolution and the rest of the history. Whenever he sees conflict between two groups, he takes the side of the greater good.
We've been working very closely with the Mohawk consultant on values as well on language.
We are
Gunyet Gahaga. Gunyet Gahaga means the people of the Flint.
Agorateka, you're doing great.
And our language is called Gunyet Geha.
Every time that he's with his people or in his village, they speak the language, which I think is really cool.
Connor, as a Native American character, he's very familiar with Native American war clubs, with the tomahawk, with the bow.
He's got very refined sense of hunting and tracking. He's been raised with the ability to navigate this environment.
Connor has a lot of his ancestry's strength from the Mohawks. He's strong, he's agile, he's able to run in the wood very quickly. It's really his nature, that's really his home.
He's essentially described as the agile brute. So he's brutal, but he's agile. He's heavy, but he can still jump very far.
He's grown up in an environment that is oftentimes very violent, and he has adjusted accordingly.
Every time he jumps, he doesn't just gracefully float through the air. He has to swing his arms. He has to use a lot of his arms and a lot of arm work to get through the trees, to push off things, to jump and swing. We had so many different versions of Connor, and he started off really slim, and then we bulked him up by adding fur and cloaks and all these things.
Instead of this thin, lean assassin, he fills out his coat. He's just a warrior in every sense.
The animation team has built over an hour of new animations just for Connor alone.
We started by looking at lots of military moves and even traditional ones of how you would fight with a tomahawk. We looked at that and we just thought it wasn't awesome enough. So we went really brutal, and it wasn't just throwing in blood.
We put a lot of time into the navigation elements, and we've completely redone our climb system. We really wanted it to be much more organic.
There's so much variety in what he can climb and how he can do it.
We have a whole set of new navigation abilities that just show off the fluidity of the assassin as he moves through these environments.
We thought it was a great opportunity to allow people to climb, trees, cliffs, natural landmarks, as well as the buildings that they climbed.
We had to add different ways of climbing up to cover cracks and also side cracks. So we have vertical cracks and side cracks.
We knew we had to support all sorts of organic angles so that the forest looks right, and still the behavior of the assassin would be fluid in any context.
He's not there to run against 500 men pitched on a battlefield. That's not his style. He's there to sneak out around behind them, climb up a cliff, do some tree running, and drop down in amongst them and take out the commander and get out of there before anyone sees him.
Connor moves are directly inspired by parkour.
Parkour is basically all about efficiency of movement, the quickest manner from point A to point B. When you see specific parkour movements, Connor doing a lazy vault or a dive roll,
the movements themselves are very accurate. Connor moves in the game like I want to move in real life. There are very few games out there that really tap into parkour free running. You've got the fight or flight, and this uses the fight and the flight to its fullest because Connor is a badass assassin and he can move like hell.
We wanted Connor to be a dual-handed specialist, so basically he's ambidextrous, he can fight with both hands.
When he lands, the ground shakes, and when he fights, people are getting knocked left, right, and center. He's very brutal.
He is battle-driven, he's brutality, and is the type of assassin who comes up and kills without question or hesitation.
The soldiers were not really able to go up against Connor. Connor's a killing machine. He's a ninja in a tank with a Wolverine in there.